With laser whips, telepathy machines, football fights, sexy alien ladies, battles to the death, and a badass soundtrack courtesy of Queen, Flash Gordon has a little bit of everything. But does this 1980 cult classic still hold up, or is it just a glorified fever dream from our childhoods? We're about to find out.
Lights go down, let's hit play. Regular guys got something to say. The Regular Guy Movie Show, talking flicks. Here we go!
Welcome to the Regular Guy Movie Show, the podcast where we dig deep into the movies from our youth and decide whether they are still classics or if they've fallen victim to the passage of time. I'm Seth, and joining me as always on this cinematic journey are my co-hosts, Justin and Brian. What's happening, gentlemen?
What's going on?
Hello, hello.
All right, well, we are kicking things off with, I know I said that we all made it sound like we do this regularly, but this is our first time, our first episode, and we are kicking things off with a revisiting of a classic. I guess we can call it that.
Yeah, kind of a cult classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flash Gordon from 1980.
The Flash Gordon.
Who will save every one of us.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the scuttlebutt anyway. Brian, why don't you kick things off here and give us a quick synopsis of the movie Flash Gordon, in case anyone hasn't seen it before and might be so inclined to learn more about it.
All right, so Flash Gordon came out in 1980. It is a vibrant science fiction film that follows the adventures of Flash Gordon, a New York Jets quarterback, as he battles the tyrannical Emperor Ming the Merciless to save Earth. So, Flash Gordon, a star quarterback of the New York Jets, he's on an airplane when a mysterious storm causes the aircraft to crash. He and fellow passenger Dale Arden are rescued by Dr. Hans Zarkov, a scientist who believes that Earth is under attack by extraterrestrial forces. Zarkov convinces Flash and Dale to join him on a journey to the planet Mongo, where they confront Ming the Merciless, the ruler intent on destroying the Earth. Okay, alongside allies like Princess Aura, Prince Baron, and Prince Voltan, Flash leads a rebellion against Ming's oppressive regime, and the film culminates in a climactic battle to thwart Ming's plans and save the planet.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds like quite the movie.
Well, considering we're still here today, I think
it was successful.
I think he was successful. Yes.
All right. All right. So where should we kick off our analysis, our in-depth look at Flash Gordon?
Well, in looking at, was the film a success? At the box office, it was not.
No.
But Rotten Tomatoes has a score of 83%. So from the people who did see it, most of them liked it.
All right. Well, then I guess we're done here.
Yeah.
All right. Great podcast. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll catch you next time. No, there's a lot more to it than just whether people liked it, though.
Absolutely. Did it age well? That's one of the things we're going to discuss. I saw the movie for the first time when I was 6 years old.
I saw it. I was probably a little bit older than that.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely did its tour of duty on TNT, TBS back in the day. And that's where I remember. In fact, watching it this time was the first time I've ever watched it without commercial.
My first experience with this 45-year-old movie is I saw it today for the very first time at 42 years old. So I'm hoping that I can bring a unique perspective that kind of rivals your own, and we'll see where that goes. It'll be interesting.
So whenever you think about a movie, there's so many different factors that go into the making of said movie. Probably what people are most familiar with is what they see on screen. And so that's somewhere I'd really like to spend a little bit of time talking about the characters and the actors that brought this movie to life. Led by Sam Jones, or Sam J. Jones, as Flash Gordon. What were your takes on Mr. Jones's performance?
He was an awful actor. Not
yeah, I think you're being kind.
Totally agree.
You guys are being kind.
In fact, there was a rift after the shooting, and during production, most of his lines were dubbed over.
Oh yeah, you could tell.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's why it looked a little off. And I think that kind of added to the poor acting is because, all of his lines were dubbed.
And even what's actually surprised me, looking back on doing my little research this last week, this could have been a trilogy.
Yes, it was slated for sequels. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Sam Jones had a little bit of a head, got a little bit big head, and the producer, Dino De Laurentiis, didn't really like that. And he's like, you know what? Meh, we're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting, going on that same vein, with the whole, Marvel movies and this whole thing, and with, Disney doing all these live action movies from their animated series. This was one of the first. This was a live action movie in 1979. There was an animated Flash Gordon series. And so they decided to make a live action movie, which is all the rage now. But yeah, this was the first time first one that I know of.
Well,
that they did.
The history of Flash Gordon goes way before that. I mean,
Right.
You see that actually paid tribute to in the opening credits of the movie. Queen, the Flash Gordon theme song rocking, but then you see all the comic book imagery that goes along with it.
Absolutely.
Flash Gordon's was around for decades before this.
Yeah,
going back to
was
like
it
the
the
1930s.
30s. You're right. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about some of the other cast members. We had Dale Arden, who was played by Melody Anderson, who's Flash's love interest. What were your thoughts on Dale as a character?
I thought Dale was pretty good. I mean, she was still not a great actress either, but I liked the way her character progressed from being just terrified on the airplane because of turbulence to like she became this like badass that was trying to single-handedly take down this galactic empire, and like plotting and scheming and shooting guys with these plasma guns and things. I thought that was pretty interesting that she just kind of a switch kind of flipped in her and she became almost like as equally a hero as Flash Gordon was in certain parts of the movie.
Hey, over here. Hey, buddy.
Well, I thought she played the plain Jane very well because that's kind of how she's typecast. I think she is kind of a plain Jane. So when she did have to up her game, I didn't see her. I didn't see her being comfortable doing that in her acting skills.
Well, even in the storytelling arc, you're right. She started off as a plain Jane, diminutive kind of character, didn't really seem to have a lot going on. And then all of a sudden she's, doing cartwheels and firing laser guns in the midst of a jailbreak. And I felt like maybe there was just some backstory not told. Maybe she was an accomplished gymnast and a fine marksman, maybe an Olympic marksman. Maybe we just needed some more backstory.
Maybe she's a spurned New York Jet cheerleader.
Could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she had to go the reporting route.
Right. And just happens to be an ace marksman.
Yeah.
And gymnast. So no, I mean, it just felt like the juxtaposition from being diminutive and suddenly being a badass. There was nothing in between.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that.
All right. Ming the Merciless, played by the renowned Max von Sydow.
Clytus, I'm bored. What plaything can you offer me today?
Now, personally, I remember Ming being, when I was a kid watching this movie, being an ominous character. And I don't know, maybe I just misremembered because I just didn't really feel he was that present.
When I was a kid, he was scary. Now, as an adult watching the movie, he's funny. And what's with that hairdo? Or lack of hairdo?
You pitiful fool. My life is not for any earthling to give or take.
So I'm just curious too. Did Ming remind either one of you of the Monarch from Venture Brothers?
Yeah, I could see that.
Like that's just the only thing I could picture the entire time. Whenever, especially when he had the headpiece on that was like patent leather or something, like latex, like this hood that he wore or whatever.
And that reminded me of that dude from The Fifth Element.
Okay,
The bad guy in The Fifth Element.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
By Gary Oldman?
Yes, that's the guy. Yeah, same headpiece, hairdo thing.
So villains just need to have bad hair pieces.
Absolutely.
I think it's a good trademark.
Yeah.
Oh, we could do an entire episode on that.
All right.
I mean, easy way to know they're a bad
Mark
guy.
a note.
All right.
Also in the film, we had Brian Blessed, not really sure the pronunciation, playing Prince Voltan, the loud, bombastic winged Hawkman.
I thought Voltan, I thought he had really great, subtle comedic timing. It was always in the background of every shot. He wasn't the main shot or main person in that shot, but there was always something he was doing that was kind of goofy, hitting somebody on the head and then like covering his mouth and being like, "Oh, I did it." Like it was just really funny. Like it was just little subtle things that gave you a chuckle. And I thought he was a key piece of the movie.
As a supporting role, I thought his acting was better than everybody else's. I thought he kind of stole the show. You could tell that as a craftsman, he was probably better at his craft than anybody else on that screen.
Stand by, my Hawkmen!
He did so much with honestly so little. Every scene he was in, he stole. He commanded the performance. Like you said, even in the background, he brought something to the project, whereas a lot of other people were just cardboard.
Agreed.
And I think that comes from his training as an actor, classically trained Shakespearean actor, who's still in the biz. I mean, he is currently the voice of the grumpy rabbit in Peppa the Pig. I'm not a huge Peppa the Pig viewer. My kids are a little bit older that I kind of missed that bus, thankfully. But he's done, Henry VIII, Hamlet, Much Ado About Nothing. He actually was a voice in Star Wars Episode 1. He was the voice in Tarzan. He was Lord Loxley, who is the father of Robin Hood in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. He commands a presence on the screen. I really enjoyed his acting, his role, his part in this movie. Like I said, he stole the show.
Now we also have Topal, who played Dr. Hans Zarkov, the eccentric scientist who figures out Ming's evil, nefarious plans. What were your takes on Topal's performance?
I don't know if he was unintentionally funny, or I don't know if he was trying to be funny, but he came across as pretty humorous as well. Especially whenever they cleared his memory and he was remembering, like trying to say, "Well, I haven't changed. Oh, I haven't changed." Like he was still this brilliant mind that even though he was now a level 6 instead of a normal human, couldn't even comprehend level 3. I thought he brought some funny pieces to it as well.
It armored me, girl. They couldn't wipe those things away. You can't beat the human spirit.
I think, he definitely was created to be the smartest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, his performance, I think, was much more comedic, and which is interesting because I don't know. My only other experience with Topal as an actor was Fiddler on the Roof, which was always one of my parents' favorite movies. I probably have watched it a dozen times. I've actually grew up practically the soundtrack of that movie lived in my mom's car.
So if I hum "If I Were a Rich Man," you will be you'll be singing that in your own head for the next 3 days.
Rich man. Absolutely. Yeah. And now that's thank you. That's there.
I'm kind of ashamed we know that.
Well, sunrise, sunset.
I'll call it more cultured and less nerdy.
I appreciate your generosity. and I think the last major character we should address is Timothy Dalton as horrible name, Prince Baron.
Mm-hmm.
2 royalties in one name.
Was he the tree guy?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he was integral to the story, like I liked his progression, he was probably one of the better actors, but still overacting for the most part,
Leave him! He's mine! I hunt him alone.
But I will give him credit because, and this is, he worked with what he had. And of all the characters in the film, I think he had the most actual followable arc. You know, we saw him in one place. He you know, kind of doing some back at the beginning, was kind of working in the background, doing his dealings. And then, you know, he and Flash battled to the death. And then he came around and was the hero of the day, sort of. So at least he progressed. You know, they put a little work into that character.
Where you go, I follow.
I wish they would have put more work in other characters, but at least that one I feel like they put a little bit of effort into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he became the Flash Gordon's sidekick. You know, I'll follow you wherever you lead. You know, like he was.
Right.
He became the guy. He was his number 2.
Okay, so you mentioned the tree. Now, remember, the first time I saw this movie, I was 6, and I was living in San Antonio, Texas. And when the tree monster scorpion thing stung him on the hand, and he pulled it out, I thought it looked like guacamole.
It did. Did it terrify you of scorpions from that point on?
No, it terrified me from guacamole.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it took me a minute to get back on that bus.
Death is certain, but only after tortured madness.
How long?
Hours, days,
Minutes,
depending on your
seconds.
strength.
So let's kind of talk about some of the major themes of the movie. You know, certainly, you know, we have the everyman hero kind of trope, which we've seen in various different movies over the years. Flash Gordon did not plan on being an intergalactic hero. He is a guy who apparently, from the exposition anyway, is a quarterback for the New York City Jets. Apparently has issues with remembering his name because he has to wear a T-shirt at the beginning of the film wearing his name. But somehow, and also as we learn, he's taking a few pilot lessons, but still can't land a plane. But later manages to fly intergalactic warships and the stupid sky scooter thingy.
Oh, see, what did I call it? A sea, or what was it? It was a space sea-doo.
The space sea-doo.
The space sea-doo. It's somewhere in my notes. Yeah. It's I like Flash's space sea-doo.
Flash Gordon in range, Captain. Fire!
You know, the other I think major theme of the movie is, you know, you have a campy, and I'll give him credit for being a self-aware campy sci-fi adventure, as opposed to more serious sci-fi films of the times, such as, you know, your Star Wars. What are your thoughts about whether the campiness works for or works against them?
Okay, I thought the campiness made the movie. That's what drew me in, especially being that young and seeing the movie. The campiness with the sound effects, with the props, with the colorful sets. I think they really hit the mark of the comic book. And most people's knowledge of Flash Gordon at the time were the cartoon, obviously, and some other media things. I think they had toys and things, but it all came from the comic book. So I thought the campiness really stayed true to the comic book theme. So I thought it added to the movie.
So I'm just curious, you know, not ever seeing this movie before today, and then didn't know there was comic books. You know, I have no history on Flash Gordon whatsoever. Whenever I was watching this, I was expecting Flash Gordon to, like, I was waiting for that spider bite moment, right? To where he became superhuman. Like he was going to be a Spider-Man or a Superman, but he was just this regular guy. And that blew me away that it never came. Like, I was just waiting and waiting. Like, when is he going to turn into a guy that just flies around in tights? You know, that's what I was expecting. Not that he was just a regular guy playing for the New York Football Jets. So that was a shock to me. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know if that added to the campiness of it to where it was just a regular guy, or would it have made it more campy Had he been in tights and flying around somewhere like old Batman, like the original Batman series?
You know what? Interesting you mentioned Batman. The screenwriter for this movie, Lorenzo Simple Jr., he actually worked on the 1966 Batman series.
Okay.
So there's a lot of similarities between this movie and what you would see when you watch the 1966 Batman, with the campy feel, with the comic book feel. I think there's some consistency there. I think that's exactly what he was going for.
I think it's good to bring up that, because Batman, the TV series, the film, the Adam West era Batman, I think really typified self-aware campiness. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the costumes, the bright colors, the biff and bow and things like that, and even the dialogue, they knew they were writing cardboard dialogue, but they delivered it in a way that was fun. And it knew how bad it was, but that made it good in a way. I think they definitely tried to tap into that vein with this movie. And I don't think they hit the mark, because it's bad acting, it's bad writing, but the special effects definitely are not special. But there's just something that I missed, and there's other examples too that even predate this. You could look at Monty Python and the Holy Grail. There's bits of self-aware camp in there. You instead of horses, they're riding around, walking and prancing with guys behind them with banging two coconuts together. There's sight gags and things that could have been done here to make it more obvious that, hey, we're having fun with this. You look at more modern examples, Thor Ragnarok. That's a movie that is cram-packed with science fiction action and adventure, but also punchlines and sight gags and silliness. So really, with this Flash Gordon, it's like they tried in a way. It's like somehow in the middle, they got lost. I think they wanted to be self-aware and campy, but somewhere in the mix, someone decided, you know what, we should really make this a serious film instead. And they just couldn't get on the same page.
I I think the division there are the actors.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple of them, like our buddy Prince Voltan, he hit that mark right on the head. He was fantastic with that. I think our scientist in the very beginning, he tried to do that same vein too. I think he missed the mark a little bit there, but I think that's what he was going for, and it was obvious. But then you had the lead, Flash Gordon. You had Dale. You had some of the other actors who did not take that as motivation for their character and for their acting. So I think you had some who were and some who weren't, and it was very inconsistent.
Yeah. And if you are going to look at it in terms of actual just a science fiction film, and just to bring up the special effects, if you want to call them that, this came out in 1980. Several years prior to that, you had the original Star Wars movie, using a lot of the same techniques, practical effects, using miniatures, practical explosions, overlays, film overdubs, and they took it to a whole new level. The makers of Flash Gordon was like, hey, we got this set of tools. Meh. One of the big battle scene, you have all the Hawkmen in the air. And this is something I never would have noticed as a kid, but now having watched enough movies and having made a few movies over the years, I was paying attention to the Hawks in the air.
I know where you're going.
And I could tell they only actually shot about 4 or 5 different people. And then on top of it, as they started to move towards the camera, they all became pseudo translucent, where you can actually see through them. And I'm like, man, that's not good.
Well, and I noticed the Space Sea-Doo was jiggling and gyrating while everybody else must have been a much better Sea-Doo driver.
Well, this is his first time.
Yeah, he was shaking all over the screen. I'm like, how's he not falling off? Everyone,
in the very first scene of the movie, like when they're just before even the titles roll, and Ming and his henchmen are picking out the target to play with for Ming's amusement. They had overlays on the screen that looked worse than the ones we did when we used to make movie 20 plus years ago.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I saw that and I'm like, man, I want to call Justin right now to rub this in his face for all the times he complained about the graphics I created for our short film Green Means Go.
The telescope,
which was made in Photoshop and looked terrible, but it looked better than that.
It did. And speaking of, whenever he's picking different natural disasters, is hot hail a thing? Is hot hail a thing?
Hot hail.
What is that?
I don't know. Ask those folks at Pompeii. But to get back to the camp, the film's campy nature is part of its appeal, but that also means the story and the dialogue often felt silly or shallow. Especially compared, like you said, to some of the deeper sci-fi epics like Star Wars.
And it doesn't have to be like, if you're going to go camp, I think there are movies who have done it extremely well, even of that same era. You can look at, like I mentioned, Monty Python, The Holy Grail, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. In more recent years, there's a movie, I don't know if either one of you are familiar with it, Gentlemen Broncos. It's I believe made by the same people who made a lot of the same people anyway that made Napoleon Dynamite, and it's about a young author who has his work stolen by some successful author. And in it, they basically have depictions of both of their versions. And they're both completely terrible. They're both completely over the top, but they are done brilliantly in a way that makes it funny. And I think that if you're going to go camp, there's got to be more humor to that campiness to make it pay off. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think they were kind of stuck in that no man's land of trying to do the pulpy, serialized feel of a 1930s comic strip. And being a modern film for the time in the 80s. And I think they just got stuck in that purgatory. They really didn't hit the mark on either, although you can see them trying.
A stranger in this temple must try the wood beast or die.
That figures.
Let's get into a few of the key moments of the film, because we've kind of danced around and we've talked about some of the campiness in different spots, but I think one of the spots that this film deserves to have discussed. Flash, Dale, Zarkov, they come to Ming's palace, and within minutes of being there, a football battle erupts.
Oh, one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie.
Forget it, Ming. Dale's with me.
Flash!
Stay back.
Don't Flash, they'll kill you!
I mean, and I get where they're going with. I mean, they have Flash. They want to cement the fact that he's a quarterback, and they just for some reason happen to have a lot of football-shaped metal objects lying around, and he uses them, to his advantage.
Yeah, were they metal or were they like melons? I mean, they were like melon-shaped.
It sounded metal. I don't know.
Did, yes,
the clang off a skull sounded metal.
Yeah, that was very fortuitous for him to have a weapon like that at his disposal.
Well, see, and that's where I first saw Voltan's subtle comedic timing.
Absolutely.
That was when he took that thing and bopped him on the head, and that's when he acted like, well, wasn't me.
Yeah, I thought that scene was critical to my childhood development or childhood enjoyment of the movie. I thought it was awesome.
I definitely am with you. When I remember that movie from when I was a kid, that scene in particular made me laugh. It made me, just emote with joy. I don't know if I felt the same way this time. Maybe I'm jaded, but I just was like, really?
I mean, my first time watching it, that's the same kind of feeling I got. Like, did you have to, you couldn't sell the fact that he was a football player with his duffel bag in the beginning, or signing the autograph. Like
What, the fact they've overtly said multiple times that he's a quarterback for the New York Jets?
right.
Or his shirt.
Flash. I can't remember who I am. Oh, Flash.
Yeah.
That's me.
He's got that memento disease, where he just short-term memory problems.
Maybe it's CTE. They didn't know a whole lot about that back in the 80s.
That could be.
That could have been
I'm
the
sure
start of it.
helmet technology isn't what it is today.
And now on a very special episode of Flash Gordon.
Okay, so 6-year-old me loved that scene. Adult me likes the scene because he knows I loved it when I was 6.
Okay, that's fair.
So I still got a charge out of that scene. I still got the yays, the oohs, the let's goes. I still got that watching that as an adult. Not near as much, but yeah, I was totally a victim of nostalgia right there.
That's fair.
So it's like a parent who likes something that their kid likes, even though they really don't like it. But you're pretending for the kid's sake, and you were doing that for your inner child.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was very well said. You summed that up. You summed that up fantastically. I didn't want to let my inner child down. Yeah. So
You knew your inner Brian liked it. Like the baby Brian loved it.
So I stood in line for that ride. Yes.
What other scene stood out to you?
All right. Here's a scene that I didn't, when I was little, think this way about. But come on. That scene with Dale was pretty rapey.
Absolutely.
Drink this.
What is it?
It has no name. Many brave men died to bring it here from the galaxy of pleasure. It'll make your nights with Ming more agreeable.
Will it make me forget?
No, but it will make you not mind remembering.
So I thought watching that as an adult actually made me feel a bit uncomfortable. It was a very, like I said, rapey situation. And when I was a child, I didn't understand, didn't get. I just thought it was kind of sexy.
Nah.
But as an adult, man, is that cringe.
Yeah, it was pretty cringy.
It did not age well at all.
Not one bit.
It made me uncomfortable.
Along those same lines, and I know it was later on in the movie, how do you feel about the princess pillow fight?
Oh, yeah.
Was that camp to be campy, or like what the hell happened there?
Okay, well,
where did that even come? Like smacked her in the face, but then they had a pillow fight instead.
Let's back up just a little bit. And I want to talk about Ornella Muti, the actress who played Princess Aura.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
I will tell you a little bit, because if I tell you more, I will embarrass myself. Okay, I've said it 100 times. We all know the age I was when I watched this movie the first time. I am a more than warm-blooded American male. I got some feelings in the nether regions watching that scene. My niblets as a young boy were engaged in that scene. Watching it as an adult, I had pretty much the same feeling.
So you were not pandering to the inner child Brian.
No. We are aligned in thinking that holy smokes, would I like to be a fly on that wall.
Where am I? Back from the dead. I've saved you.
My God! How?
By magic, of course. With a kiss.
Yeah. That's a moment for me. 10-year-old me is like, ooh.
Now, did she say
Tell me
by
more.
magic or my magic?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I don't know. It just
all
sounded.
I heard was kiss. And I'm like, okay.
It's just such a weird sentence. Either way, I mean, by magic or my magic is still just an awkward sentence to say.
Yeah, and oh man,
Sorry, I threw you off.
You did
your moment.
It's a kind of magic. Different Queen film, but yeah. You know, and then I also love there's a point where she's flying Flash after saving him shortly after this moment to Prince Baron, and they're using the telepathy machine.
It's too dangerous for you here. You can't come back. Stay where you're safe.
Oh my God, this girl's really turning me on.
I didn't quite get that. Think it again.
Forget I thought it. It wasn't about you. Over.
What?
That right there is what this movie should be doing more of. Being funny.
Yeah, absolutely. There was plenty of places where they could have been.
Yeah.
And there was plenty of places that they did. And I'm chuckling at things that Ashley was sitting on the couch next to me watching this, and she wasn't chuckling, but I got it. Like, I thought that's really funny, you know, and there was other parts that I was like, man, they could have used some funny there. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time to bring it up or not. I took a note. I had to pause it. And at 1 hour and 12 minutes, I was like, man, would you wrap this up? And then they had a whip fight and it engaged me again. But there was like, it had drug on for so long in that middle part where there was nothing funny anymore.
Let the combat begin! To the death!
You know, you were right that there are some severe pacing issues in this movie. You know, definitely has moments that drag, especially in the middle. They kind of lose the narrative and they lose momentum. It picks up again towards the end and the climax, but you're absolutely right. There's definitely a trip to the kitchen or bathroom break in this movie.
You don't have to pause it. You're not going to miss anything.
And that's how I often judge the quality of a movie. You know, whether it feels like it has lasted as long as it actually has. Like, there's definitely 3-hour movies I've watched that only feel like it's been an hour and a half. And then there's hour and a half movies that feel like they're 4 to 5, maybe 6. And this pulled so long.
It did. It sure did.
Yeah, the beginning's exciting. The middle drags. The end wraps it up.
So
kind of,
but yeah, but and that's something that kind of also caught me as almost like a hole that maybe I just didn't feel it because for a movie that feels really long, watching the action, it just doesn't feel like that much time has passed. I feel like, man, they've just had a really bad afternoon. You know, it starts off Zarkov's talking about, you know, we got 14 days to save planet Earth, and then all of a sudden. Where did all the time go?
I mean, whip fights.
Lots of whip fights.
You know, space Sea-Doo tours.
Space Sea-Doos.
and Dale was drugged out of her mind for most of that time. So,
yeah,
you know, she was on a bad trip.
Well, and back to Dale's, because this kind of brings it up again. I feel like just bad writing. You know, Dale doesn't seem to care for Flash at the beginning of the movie. He's cheering for him during the football battle. He's held captive. They're separated. They kind of communicate via telepathy. And then when they finally get reunited, immediately, like, he's like, you know, we'll tell our children about it. And she's like, I'd like that.
I think she liked Flash from the beginning. And I think her indifference towards him was her just covering up the fact that she didn't want everybody to know that she had fallen for him.
But even so, that's what, like maybe a total of 20 hours, and they're talking about having kids.
Last time I saw you, I prayed it was a dream. This time I'm praying it's not. Are you okay?
I am now.
Me too. Boy, have I got some crazy stories to tell you.
Save them for our kids.
Oh, I accept.
Enough!
Would you leave us alone? Oh, I just got engaged.
My favorite part of that is she's like, are you okay? And he's like, I am now. And she goes, me too, unprompted. Like, he didn't even ask her if she was okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems like an awfully advanced pickup move for such kind of adult.
So what other moments from the film that really stood out to you as being discussion worthy?
Oh, I don't know about you guys, but I thought the memory erasing scene was pretty cool.
That was a good one.
The editing on the little screen, of his entire life, that was pretty darn progressive for 1980. It was real artsy fartsy.
It was a true Total Recall moment.
Absolutely.
It was super cool. I liked that part. That was a good one.
That was neat. That was a little highbrow. And I thought it was really well done. I thought it was a novel idea. I just wish more of the film was like that.
We are going to empty your memory, as we might empty your pockets. Doctor.
No, don't do that. Please, I beg you. My mind is all I have.
What did you notice though that somebody just threw his wife into a pool and she drowned?
Yes, it was not touched on at all. I have a flashback season of life, and I don't know. I created in my mind instantly a whole backstory of what happened here.
Right.
That Zarkov and his wife Susan had a few too many to drink. Him and his buddy Bill's like, hey, let's throw Susan in the pool just for fun, but everyone forgot that Susan couldn't swim. And hilarity turned to tragedy within seconds, and
That's covers her with a blanket.
And then he went insane, saw a bunch of aliens in outer space, lost his job at NASA, and then, brings us to present day, where he's waving a pistol and trying to kill his assistant.
Well, thankfully he did, because he helped save the Earth.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without him and his mania, we may not be here today.
But you know what ultimately saved the planet Earth?
Humanity.
No.
I think I know the answer to this question.
What saved the Earth was not Flash Gordon.
No, not at all.
What saved the Earth,
yes,
was really bad computer networking. Because yes, Ming is the Merciless, and yes, he's got, for some reason, for his playthings, decided to destroy the moon, which is going to destroy the Earth, and blah 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 blah. Really, all hope is lost. They don't know how to turn the machine off. They don't know how to stop anything, but they pull off one dude's pair of electro goggles, and suddenly the whole system goes to shit.
And that one was a mind bender for me. I just, none of it made any sense.
And Justin, you work in networking of computers and such. Talk to me from your own personal experience, your professional viewpoint. How horrible that network had to have been.
I mean, that's not even a network.
Okay.
I mean, any large corporation, which you could assume that the Ming dynasty has some sort of redundancy in their network. So if, you have a circuit that goes down, you have a backup circuit that automatically pops up and you don't lose a beat.
They'd have probably in-house IT guys. They'd have out-of-house IT guys. They'd have a frigging, consultants out the wazoo to make sure their shit works.
You would think so. I mean, your dynasty is at stake here.
Yeah.
Your redundancy, your online is important. You've got to be able to run everything. You need redundancy in your network. Even if your network is agents with really cool goggles on.
All right, so what we have not talked about yet, and we've kind of danced around a little bit, alluded to, but I think really honestly is possibly the
best part of the movie.
Yeah, is the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Queen.
Yes.
Rocked it.
Absolutely.
And what I liked and what I learned about this, I had no idea because, as a kid watching this film, again, the Flash Gordon soundtrack, and then whenever years later, actually really got into Queen when I was a few years older than that, it made me elevated it in my mind just from the soundtrack. But now looking back on learning more about it, Queen didn't really want to do this movie initially until they saw the first draft and saw, you know what? We kind of like the campiness, and this seems like our kind of gig.
Well, that kind of goes back to, I'm sure Brian May had a big hand in that because he's an astrophysicist, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so a sci-fi, spacey thing is really right up his alley. So I'm willing to bet, and I don't know for sure, but I'm willing to bet he was a big driver behind, yeah, guys, let's do this. And I have to say, even before I knew who Queen was, the very first time I saw this movie, the background music, the soundtrack that went along with the different scenes. We mentioned the scene, the football scene when they were trying to escape. The background music elevated every scene that it was playing behind.
Are your men on the right pills? Maybe you should execute their trainer.
The power, the chords, the rock, just really, really solidified some of the more marginal moments in this film to me. And I think without that powerful of a soundtrack, we wouldn't be talking about this film.
So I have a counter to this, and only in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Queen's great. Like, and I like that they did the music for the rest of it, even just like the background stuff. Like, you could tell it was them, and it was really interesting. There was one spot though, and it was during the wedding scene.
Oh my God.
The wedding march played with the electric guitar. Now, there's a couple of things that I have a problem with this for. Would an alien wedding
use Here Comes the Bride?
Exactly. Why does the electric guitar make it seem more alien? And if you're like, did you really need to drive home that this was a wedding? Like, you could have done any kind of like cool, like spacey sounding music that was just there in the background. There was the priest there. They were talking about the wedding leading up to it. If it was for the camp of it, then great. But it just kind of was like you could have done something different there for me.
Yeah, you definitely don't need that to know it's a wedding.
Right.
But yeah, I think it checks the box of camp right there.
I mean, it was one of those that was like a chuckle and then be like, wait a minute. I don't know. You could have done something.
Right, which makes it a little bit more frustrating because that's a great injection of the camp, whereas other parts of the film didn't have any.
Right, so then you wouldn't have questioned if it was campy or not.
Exactly.
If it would have been consistent throughout.
Correct.
Right, okay.
So there's one more scene that I want to bring up because I have a feeling it might make an appearance in some other, or something similar in some other films we might talk about down the line in future podcasts. The quick mud. Flash is running from Prince Baron and finds himself ensnared in a pit of mud that sucks him into the dirt. Now, this is not the only time in the 1980s, and certainly probably before that as well, but I'm just going with my film, library that lives rent-free in my mind, that quicksand or its equivalent has gotten a disproportionate amount of screen time for its actual world life risk.
Well, it actually turned itself into a meme. We've all seen it. It said, as a child, I thought quicksand was going to be a bigger problem. Yeah, a bigger problem in my adult life.
Yeah. I mean, never-ending story. Oh my goodness! I mean, like the emotionally wrecking scene that honestly probably defined so much of the mental psyche for a large portion of Generation X.
Or how about The Princess Bride?
Yeah.
Or you can even the Sarlacc monster.
That's exactly yes.
There's quicksand everywhere in cinema.
Yeah,
absolutely everywhere. Indiana Jones. Come on now. There's quicksand everywhere.
I think the closest you get to it is if you're on the beach and you're where the waves are coming in and you kind of wiggle.
Oh yeah,
and your feet start to sink a little bit,
sink down to the ankles. Yeah.
But it's not too hard to get them out.
No.
So, I don't think it's gonna.
Yeah,
I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
So, do you guys have anything else you want to discuss?
Okay, let's talk about the final scene.
Okay.
This made a mark on music as a child when the spaceship crashes in to Ming the Merciless. And the nose of the spacecraft goes through his chest, and he's dying on it. And at the end, when he slides off, and that primordial ooze,
that green ooze
that is stuck on the nose of this aircraft,
the guacamole,
almost. Yeah, that made an impression. I thought that was kind of gross and cool at the same time as a kid.
Well, I along those same lines, as an adult, I couldn't help but to notice all the spaceships looked a lot like penises. They were very phallic.
Maybe that was the camp.
Maybe.
It doesn't surprise me that you would notice that. If any of us would, yeah, it would be either you or I. Yeah, that was so really, in the end, he got dicked, man. He got it right through the chest.
You pitiful fool. My life is not for any earthling to give or take.
Speaking also of the end, we go through what feels like a really, really long movie. And we get to, battling and doing this, and Hawkmen flying through the sky, dying by presumably the hundreds, if not thousands. Ming gets impaled.
Or dying by the Force.
Yeah, could be. Film overlays.
Right.
Beauty of 1960s film technology. And how do we know that Flash wins the day? Is it a big explosion? Is it anything else? No, it's a friggin' floating robot that says, the Earth has been saved.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of closure there.
No.
And that thing hated them from the beginning.
Well, and on top of it, think about the damage that had already been done. Has the Earth really been saved? I mean, the moon had been, if I remember correctly, if I understood correctly, the moon was being projected towards the Earth, and it was basically, the Earth, at a certain point then, the Earth's gravitational pull would pull the moon in irrevocably, and it would collide to Earth, or something then destroying the Earth, or at least making it completely uninhabitable. If you've quelled if they've had 14 days, and at the beginning of the film, it was 14 days till complete obliteration of planet Earth. And at that point, we have blowing up and exploding, melting moon rocks colliding into the Earth, and we're having all these tidal waves and hot hail.
Hot hail. It's worst of all of them. Yeah.
And so we're only minutes away from complete obliteration. So even if we didn't get complete obliteration, the proximity of the moon to Earth at that point would be so much, the tidal waves and everything else would be way off the charts. Is Earth even really saved?
Well, and wasn't it Ming that did offer Flash Earth to rule over it, and then commented about how the people would be easier to control with all their tragedy that he's unveiled on Earth?
Yeah, so, I mean, Flash, did he really save every one of us? Or did the networking issues really save every one of us? Or do we now just have, man, a really crappy place to spend a weekend?
I think maybe it just saved every some of us.
Long live Flash. You've saved your Earth. Have a nice day. Yeah!
Is there anything else we haven't talked about that we probably should?
Did we hit on the fact that he taught aliens about humanity?
Oh, yeah, that's kind of important.
It was the fight to the death scene, right? Like they were on the rotating tabletop.
Oh, yeah.
The pedestal.
How crazy was it when they're fighting on that thing and you're like, oh, don't get thrown over the edge. And then all of a sudden, spikes come out of it.
Right.
It's like there's a whole new dimension to this, fear factor.
And again, with all their advanced technology, they throw two whips down on the platform and say, go at it. It's beat each other with whips.
It's the old gladiatorial theme, mano y mano.
And I thought it was funny too, because he's like, hand me the remote control. And another classic Voltan moment, and he starts playing with it and it starts wobbling harder and the spikes start coming out, but yeah, he saved the tree guy, pulled him back up so he wouldn't die. And it was another classic moment for the scientist whenever they're like, what did he do that for? And he goes, humanity.
What is this? Humanity. Madness!
So he taught them about humanity.
Yeah.
And that's what ultimately brought them together to bring down Ming.
Oh, it's a classic story of good versus evil.
Yeah.
And, kind of imparting, like you said, humanity and some, human vibes into the universe.
But they're aliens. They wouldn't know about humanity.
This place is a lunatic asylum.
You're right, Flash. You are so right.
All right, so anything else? Or should we move on to final thoughts?
Let's go to final thoughts.
All right, Justin, tell me your final thoughts. Does Flash Gordon hold up?
Flash Gordon. Where it stands right now, no. Would I watch it again sober? No. Would I watch it again after about an hour after taking mushrooms? Absolutely, and I would probably love it. But no, it doesn't hold up for me, But, I also don't have the nostalgia feel to it, too. I didn't see it when I was 6 or 9 years old, I saw it at 42, so it's pretty much at face value. But, yeah, it doesn't do it for me.
All right, Brian.
I am totally guilty of the nostalgia factor. It has me in its grips, and I cannot escape it. So I will go to my death loving this movie. That being said, my most recent rewatch, there were definite aspects that were disappointing. I think I had a little bit of a Mandela effect where my memory of it was greater than it actually is, and I'm okay with that. And I will go to my grave thinking that Flash Gordon is one of my favorite movies because of how it made me feel when I was 6. And as long as I continue to hold on to that feeling, I don't care about special effects or story or plot holes. It's a feeling. Yeah, that's where I stand.
I love it.
I am a lover of science fiction. I'm a lover of camp and humor. Flash Gordon on paper marries those two and then throws in Queen. I mean, on paper, this should be a great movie.
Don't forget the hot chick.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Does not hurt one bit. On paper, Flash Gordon is the recipe for success. But it does not succeed on the sci-fi side, even by, and I'm not talking about today's standards. I don't think it holds up to 1980 standards. There were way better sci-fi films being made in 1980 and the years that followed. There were also many films that used the camp and the shtick and the laughs much more effectively. So ultimately, based upon outside of the soundtrack, there's really not a lot about that movie with watching it now with open eyes that holds up. I don't think it holds up today. I actually really don't think it held up then.
Well, the box office proved you right there.
Yeah. And the thing is, this is also the nature of this podcast, because if I would have told 10-year-old me that 45-year-old me would think Flash Gordon was a bad movie, I would have kicked myself in the balls. Because 10-year-old me loved this movie. And for all the reasons that 10-year-old me, would have loved this movie. But 45-year-old me, now looking back on it, I don't love this movie. I think it's a bad movie, and I really almost regret having rewatched it. I wish I would have left it with all the nostalgia, blankets of nostalgia covering it. Because now seeing it in the light of day, I feel sad.
Kind of like knowing how they make sausage.
Yep. Absolutely.
I don't even know how it's made. I just want to eat it.
I gotta say, Seth, I cannot speak to your opinion because that is yours. That was harsh, bro.
The game's lost, Ming. Stop your attack on Earth and I'll spare your life.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of the Regular Guy Movie Show. If you enjoyed our deep dive into Flash Gordon, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. Until next time, be kind and rewind.
The Regular Guy Movie Show, talking flicks. Here we go!
So, okay, there was the scene where he was getting ready to be put to death. Flash was going to be put to death, and he denied his meal, and he's, whatever. And he's like, do you have a last request? And he says, I want to see Dale. and he's got that big, like, crazy thing on his head, you know, and he's shackled. And she comes in, and he's like, I said I want to see her. And so they make it disappear. So they have this time to spend together, and the guy goes over and he flips over an hourglass. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, you have all of this advanced technology, and you're going to calculate time with an hourglass.
Because it looks badass, Justin.
But it also went backwards.
Well, even more badass.
So it was just.
Do you have an upside down flowing hourglass?
I wish I did.
Slacker.
I would use it a lot for my enemies.